Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Caroline Garnett McGraw with The Clearing, and we are a non 12-step, dual diagnosis residential addiction treatment center. And what that translates to is that we help people learn how to stop hurting themselves, how to stop the depression, the anxiety, the addiction, the trauma from taking over their lives, and how to actually alter their lives for good. And today we're talking about how can I tell if I'm addicted? And this question comes up for a lot of people during the holidays because the holidays can be very triggering. The holidays and the thought of socializing and parties and adding on to everything that we normally do, socializing with people we don't normally see who perhaps bring back some troubling memories for us, can have us reaching for the food, reaching for the booze, reaching for our comfort mechanism to help us to feel safe. And so when we are alone and we're by ourselves, we might wonder, do I have a problem with this? Do I have a problem with too much TV, too much exercise, too much junk food, too many drugs, too much alcohol? Do I have a problem? Am I addicted? So that's what we're diving into today. First, I think it's really helpful to define our terms. So what is addiction? How do we tell if we're addicted? We need to define what it means to have an addiction. Here's one definition that we use. Addiction is a dysfunctional set of behaviors that alters your brain's chemistry and your neurocircuitry. It impacts your life on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And however, we would say that if you're willing to do the work, you can recover from addiction. The reason that within our program, we don't use language surrounding addiction being a disease and we don't subscribe to the brain disease model is because we want to speak in empowering terms. And we want to reflect the power and the strength that we see in our clients and the people that we work with, in the people that attend our program. So we recognize that addiction does cause changes to the brain. However, we also recognize that recovery also changes the brain. And we want people to know that it is possible to heal and to recover, and you are not doomed. If you're dealing with an addiction, it doesn't mean you'll have to struggle with this for your entire life. You can heal and you can recover. So we work with people dealing with addictions. We acknowledge the reality of them, but we also know that there is hope. So know that if you're in that space of, I think I really do have an addiction. I think I really do have a problem. There is hope for you to be able to shift that and to be able to change that. So how do you know if your behavior qualifies as an addiction? So this quote from Caroline Myss, actually, I think it's Carolyn Mays. I'm never sure how to pronounce her name. Her last name is Myss. So here's the quote. It reads, "In energy terms, any behavior motivated by the fear of internal growth qualifies as an addiction." I'll read that again. In energy terms, any behavior Any behavior motivated by the fear of growth qualifies as an addiction. She goes on to say, even a behavior that is usually healthy, for example, exercise or meditation, can be an addiction if it is used to avoid pain and personal insight. So we love this definition because it really gets to the heart of what qualifies as addictive behavior. And it's not just the stereotypically bad behaviors such as over drinking, overeating, over drugging. No, even a behavior that's considered virtuous, such as exercise or meditation, can be an addiction if you're using it as a way to avoid pain and personal insight. If you're using it as a buffer between yourself and the inner work that you need to do, then it can qualify as an addiction. So take a look at your own habits through that light and ask yourself, am I using this to avoid pain and personal insight? Am I using this behavior to avoid the inner work that I know I need to do? If so, if you're constantly doing that, that qualifies as an addiction. And yes, being super busy can certainly qualify as an addiction in energetic terms. So this lines up with what we teach in our program because we develop addictions in order to avoid pain. We create new pain in the form of the addiction and all the drama that brings to avoid the old pain. But what if we learned how to deal with that old pain? What if we learned how to heal it? then we don't need the addiction anymore. We're able to energetically disconnect from the addiction because we know that we have the resources and the wherewithal within ourselves to handle that old pain that we were running from for so long. So I also want to mention here that there's a prevailing myth in our culture, even now, that people who struggle with addictions just lack willpower. They just need to be stronger in their characters, and they just need to shape up and fly right and just stop drinking. Just stop. It's that simple. The truth is that it's not that simple, because often it's not that people dealing with addictions are weak. In fact, what we see often in our program is that people with addictions are actually very strong. They've usually been through so much difficulty and emotional, mental, physical trauma, and their addictive behaviors are adaptations that helped them to endure and to survive in the wake of that trauma. And again, we've done lots of videos about this topic, but I just want to bring to the forefront of your mind that yes, trauma looks like abuse, neglect, all of the things that you typically associate with it. But the definition of psychological trauma is completely subjective. So it can be anything that's shocking and deeply upsetting to you. So while one person may have an obviously very difficult life on the physical level with abuse and neglect and all of this, another person who has their basic needs covered, who's never, been overtly hit or beat up, they might have a lot of trauma too because their subjective experience has been different. Maybe they felt unloved their entire life. Maybe they've never had a strong connection to a person that they trusted. That is extremely traumatic as well. It just looks different. So I say that to remind us not to judge your level of trauma based on someone else's level of trauma. That's a false metric. Trauma is completely subjective in the psychological sense. So if you've gone through trauma, you have probably spent a lot of effort pushing that pain down for many years of your life. And the problem is, of course, is that we're human and we have a finite amount of energy and resources and wherewithal to push pain down. The other problem is that life tends to bring us more pain on top of the old pain. So as we go on, something traumatic happens and we don't deal with it, so we push it down. And then something else happens that's traumatic and difficult, and we can't deal with that either, so we push that down on top of the other one. And sooner or later, the amount of energy and emotion that we're pushing down is just incredible. It's crazy. And we need a break from that. And that's why we turn to our addictive substances, because at a certain point, we're just like, I can't keep this up anymore, So I share that so you can reframe, addiction is not about, oh, this person's just, not strong or they're being selfish. It may look like that, of course, but the reality is usually this person is in so much pain. It's like if you saw a gunshot victim on the street, you wouldn't think, oh, they're just not strong enough to get up. You would think, oh my gosh, this person has a traumatic injury and they need help immediately. That's how we tend to view people who are struggling with addiction. It's, oh my gosh, they're in tremendous psychological pain. They need emergency care to help them. And when they have the right care, they can heal and they can go on to have amazing, wonderful, and productive lives. So I also wanted to share, you may be thinking, okay, great, I get this concept of we push down our old hurts and we push down our old hurts and we use addiction to try and cope with all that pain. How do we heal from those underlying hurts? So this is an amazingly simple and clear principle. It's that we know from the principles of spiritual psychology that we teach in our program, when we apply love to the parts of ourselves that hurt, that is when we can heal. When we learn to apply love to the parts of ourselves that are hurting, we are able to heal. That sounds maybe too good to be true and too simple, but we assure you that from working with hundreds of graduates with an over 80% success rate, when we teach people how to care for those vulnerable parts of themselves, how to give those hurting parts love and compassion, we see them heal. And it's amazing. It's so powerful. The human psyche is made this way. It's even if you've been through the most terrible traumas and the most awful hurts, if you're able to learn how to give yourself love and to receive love from others to help heal those hurts, you can get through unimaginable things. The power of love is just beyond anything. So I share that with you in hopefulness that if you recognize yourself here and you're thinking, you know what, I do have a behavior that qualifies as an addiction. The next step is not to shame yourself. The next step is not to judge yourself for that. The next step is to learn how to offer yourself kindness, love, and acceptance. And we understand that's not easy to do on your own, particularly when you're starting, particularly when you realize you have an addiction. It is so important to find a trained counselor that can really help you to learn that process, to learn how to heal those parts inside yourself. That being said, you do have those resources within you already. You just need somebody to support you in accessing them. So when you're able to give yourself the love that you've been longing for, you don't need the addictive behaviors anymore. And that's how you get free. So thank you for watching and listening. I know we have lots of people watching live. I just want to check on over to the comments. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to pop them in the comment box. And I always read these during and after our lives. So Greg says hello. Rhonda says hello. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Donna. Hi, Larry. Yes, Shannon, any behavior motivated by the fear of growth qualifies as an addiction. That's Carolyn Mace. Leroy says yes. Shannon says, this is so good. Everyone's giving thumbs up. Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate you watching and you listening. And thank you for tuning in. And it's our honor and our pleasure to support you at The Clearing. And if you want to reach out to us, if you want a free confidential call to support you in healing your underlying core issues, you can always give us a call at, dang, I can't remember the number. Sorry, I'm going to look it up. This is so bad, guys. I say this number every week. 425-275-8600. Once again, that's 425-275-8600. You can always give us a free call. This is a great example of, there was a time when I, as a perfectionist, would have felt super insecure about, oh my gosh, they're all going to know that I don't do well with number recall when I'm on live video. But thanks to the folks at The Clearing, I have learned how to love that part of me that's terrified of making a mistake in front of other people and not being accepted. So I share that with you, human to human, and I wish you a wonderful holiday season, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.